I hope this is better now. I'll give it like a minute again, but I made the presentation on my phone, so that should make things better quality and more audible. So if you guys can hear me better, let me know. I can also use this as like a whiteboard if I want to. Okay, I'm just going to continue the presentation where it left off, and if Jimmy wants me to make a full video, I'll do that. I don't know really how to place my phone. I think that's good. Anyway, let's continue. American Sign Language was the next language I learned. It was over the summer, this past summer actually, in 2017, and I learned it with my girlfriend, and it took us only 48 hours of study. We still practice it together. Okay, so just quickly I'm going to go through the list of the languages that I'm conversational, studying, or beginner. I'm going to run through the list. It's Dutch, Czech, French, Japanese, Russian, Hebrew, Biblical Hebrew, Esperanto, Low German, Italian, High Valyrian, Cantonese, Basque, Latvian, Sanskrit, and British Sign Language. In total, that's 24 languages. Now, how do I do it? Before I continue on that, I have a few other hobbies I'd like to give like an honorable mention. I studied genealogy a lot, which is one of the reasons I got into languages. I've traced my family back to the 1200s, and I have my own genealogy website, so. I also snowboard a lot. I've been snowboarding since very young, and I'm at a pretty decent level. Actually, in theory, every Saturday I'm out on the slopes, but it's really only been once so far this winter. And then finally, piano is my last hobby, which I've been playing for 14 years. The biggest piece I ever played was the Nutcracker Suite. It takes almost 40 minutes to play through. I learned them by the song, so it was like the Russian dance and everything. Anyway, let's get on to the presentation. And before we start talking about how to study many languages at once, I want to talk to you about why people think it's difficult. It's called linguistic burnout, where you're studying a certain amount of languages and you're studying so much that you basically lose all motivation and never want to study anything ever again, which I don't think I've ever had, but I know plenty of people who have had that problem. Like, I know somebody who was studying 3 or 4 languages, and that was way too much for him, so he just stopped studying languages altogether. And so it's kind of sad because many people don't realize that it doesn't take a gene or a skill or a disorder or anything like that to study a language or many languages. It just takes discipline and motivation. One problem with many language learners is they'll get like a high on a language for like 2 weeks and study it, and then it suddenly becomes uninteresting to them because there's this other new language that's so beautiful and they want to study that one. And Richard Simcott, a famous polyglot, he refers to it as language promiscuity, where you're basically a slut to every language that exists, and you want to study them all. But I don't think anybody's ever studied more than 200 languages, and certainly not 8,451 languages that Glottolog 3.0 lists. Anyway, the causes of linguistic burnout can be very many in number, and it's different for every person. Some people, they burn out linguistically because they're dabbling too much. Other people, it's because they don't have enough motivation or can't find the time or anything like that. But the whole problem with linguistic burnout is basically you've got a mindset that you have lost motivation to learn the language because it's too hard or better than you or something. It's all based on motivation. And a big example of why this shouldn't be true is, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Alexander Argelis, but he speaks around the same amount of languages as Wouter, so somewhere around 20, Wouter Cordovainer, somewhere around 20 some languages, and he has a list on his website. It's like his least fluent language, he's 92% fluent in. And he's ridiculous. And his languages aren't easy languages to study. Like, he speaks both Old and Middle Norse, as well as Old High German, Middle High German, and Proto-Germanic, stuff like that. The resources of them are very few and pretty impossible, but his whole thing with learning languages was he was maybe not motivated, but he was definitely disciplined. His father was a polyglot, and he really never raised his child with a respect for languages or the ideal of being a polyglot, or even gave him any tips of being a polyglot. So he wanted to be one, and he was basically destined to be one because his father was one, but he didn't know where to start. And during some of his linguistic journey, he spent 10 years in almost complete solitude learning languages for 15 some hours a day. And at that point, he wasn't really learning languages. In his opinion, he was just learning like knowledge and stuff. He actually needs to go out and talk to people in order to learn a language. Who would have thought? Anyway, the best ways to learn a language in order to stop linguistic burnout, or it takes a lot of discipline and motivation. For a period of time, I was spending 40 minutes on a total of 6 languages every day, writing up 2 paragraphs at least. And sometimes it would be more than 40 minutes if it was a language like Hebrew or Japanese, but eventually I got to the point where I could write 2 solid, grammatically correct paragraphs in Czech without having a problem. Or whatever language came my way. But I don't do that anymore because it became almost an obsession for me to like, I gotta get this done before I go to bed. I was losing lots of sleep, so I don't do that anymore. But dedication, motivation, and discipline are three very important traits for learning a language. In my opinion, discipline is the biggest because with motivation, there are many days you are going to not want to study languages. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Polyglot Progress, but Matthew and Abigail, they run that channel. They are doing a series called Mango Language, or the Romance Language Challenge or something, where they're learning French and they're learning Spanish and Italian at the same time, trying to figure out if it's easier or harder to learn two languages from the same family at the same time. And they make it really real. Oh, sweet, Jimmy. The sound is awesome. Okay. They make it really real, and the fact that if they're not feeling motivated, they're still gonna do it for the sake of the channel, because they had like one clip they're doing of them learning Spanish or Italian each day, but they're like going to tell you, I'm not feeling motivated today. So the most important trait for learning a language is definitely discipline, because many days you're not going to be motivated. Some days I'm not motivated to study my 6 to 8 languages a day, and some days I want to study all 24, and I know it's impossible. Don't ever try that. Oh, it hurts. But now I am going to share with you some tips and tricks for learning languages that will be very helpful for you, and hopefully you might have figured these out by now. But I want to preface this by saying I saw a video about the 4 methods of learning languages and how polyglots use them. Most polyglots focused on 1 or 2 aspects of learning languages. There's 4 of them, or ways of learning languages. There's input, there's output, and there's spaced repetition, and the last one is I forget. It doesn't particularly matter, but I'm going to give you some tips, and my definite biggest tip is to mix up how how you use these 4 different methods of learning languages. A layman who has never studied languages, doesn't know their own linguistic capability, might look at learning a new language as a simple act of listening to the radio or asking people questions about, what is this? This is a table. What is this? This is a window. What is this? This is a building. But you have to use all 4 of these methods in order to be a successful language learner. I'm going to write them down because I'm going to write down some names of apps and stuff that would be of great help, and also explain some of these. So we have input, output, spaced repetition, and Oh yeah, obvious. Can't believe I forgot this. Immersion. Okay, so I have found in my life that all four of these methods work almost seamlessly for me, which is typically very weird. Might have something to do with my brain and how it works, but these four methods, input, output, spaced repetition, and immersion, work really well for me. And so I want to show you some apps and ways you can study languages using these four methods. So the first one is input. One of the biggest ways I learned Swiss German was through listening to radio. I used a website called srf.ch, which is a German website in Switzerland. They have 5 different languages of that website, so if you are looking for something in French, they have rts.ch. My S is kind of messed up, and my R too. And if you're looking for something more to the point of Italian or Portuguese or whatever, they have 5 different languages. The entire website is not just translated, but there's broadcast and everything in those languages. But so input includes radio / television, as well as reading. A great app for reading and listening in your target language is Bilinguapp. I'm writing it down so you guys can see it. It has a bunch of different short stories. You can purchase some. Or at least most of the ones all of the ones I have are free. But that's great for reading, and it has recordings in many languages. I think there's 13 some languages now. So those are the apps and methods you can use for learning input. Now for output, it's a little different because this is writing and speaking. One of the best writing apps I've seen is probably, I don't know. A lot of the apps I use are spaced repetition because I do the rest by myself. I know that Mango Languages, which is the Ariana, it's exactly what you typed there except for two P's after the A at the end. Bilinguapp. Or Bilinguapp. Oh, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, to be honest. But anyway, the output, Mango Languages is a spaced repetition based app that uses you can, if you're on your phone, you can use an audio thing that allows you to compare your voice to the voice of the person speaking it, whether it's a male or female. So it's just mango, like the fruit. Mango. They are really great for spaced repetition, but they also have that audio thing. But output is mostly, I find myself writing more than speaking, because a lot of the languages I learn are not very common, such as Irish Gaelic. I have never met a person that speaks that language. But yeah, so output is writing and speaking. Those are the best ways to learn languages through those methods. Spaced repetition. There's a lot of apps on the market in languages for this. There's a few I would recommend to you. If you're on this Facebook group, you probably have heard of this small app that's 6 years old almost. Duolingo. If you haven't heard of it, let me know. But it's a pretty famous app. Started by a guy named Jan van der A. Or no, it's a different guy. It was started by Jan van something. Different from Jan van der A. But he is the man who invented the CAPTCHA, where you have to type in that annoying picture that shows that you're not a bot at the bottom of an application for like a Gmail account or something. The CAPTCHA digitized hundreds of thousands of books just by people wanting to make accounts, because they would put one word that is correct, like that they know the correct thing for, and they put another word that they don't know the, like it's just a digitized picture from a book that they don't know the actual meaning, the digitized typed out form of it, and you are basically transcribing a book by doing that. And when they have enough people that get the same one correct, they can determine this is what it actually says. And so he took that mentality and took it to Duolingo, and he wanted to translate the website into many languages, because it was mostly English at the time, English and Spanish, and wanted articles to be able to be read in several languages. And he actually ended up translating 20-some thousand articles. I'm pretty sure they don't do that anymore because of the, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why they don't, but yeah, that was a really cool idea. Anyway, Memrise is another app. It doesn't have just languages. You can make your own course, you can use other people's courses, but they have Memrise. Memrise creates their own apps for, or their own courses for, say, German or something. But if you're looking for specific German vocabulary and you're okay with it being from somebody who might not be like the brand name of the app you're on, you can search like advanced German or like German kitchen terms or something, and it will have that, and you can study off of that, and it's actually really great. A bunch of friends of mine create quality language learning apps or language learning courses through Memrise, using audio from natives and stuff like that.
You have been
And then
kickstart stuff still? No.
another app for this, it isn't as famous as I would say Duolingo and Memrise are, but it's Close Master with CLOZE, Close Master. It's spaced repetition, and also they have a wicked huge amount of vocabulary in most of the languages that they have on there. And, oh, I just remember a good app for output. There's this website called forvo.com. It also has an app. I think it's Forvo. I'm gonna make sure. But, it does pronunciation for words in tons of different languages. Yeah, it's forvo.com. they do pronunciations like they do everything, or they have tons of pronunciations for several words. If you just look at the amount of languages that they have on their website, they have the complete language list. Includes Abaza, Abkhazian, Adyghian, Afar, Afrikaans, Akan, Albanian, Aleut, Algerian, Arabic, Algonquin, Amharic, Ancient Greek, Arabic, Aragonese, Arapaho. Like, I haven't even gone through all the A's and I'm already almost out of breath. That's not exactly sure how many languages, because it doesn't have a number on here, but it's got tons of different languages. And let's say we're looking for a word in smaller language, like Icelandic. Let's go with Icelandic. And Icelandic, there are 300,000 speakers of Icelandic in the entire world. The number of speakers that have contributed to Forvo are 393, which is ridiculous considering that is more than 0.1% of the population. And there are 19,900 words that are on the website with official pronunciations, and then pending approval from the owners of the website, there are 21,000 words. So there's 40,000 words in the dictionary on this website. It's not even that big of a language. There's only 300,000 speakers. Let's go to something even more outlandish. Let's go with Kyrgyz. Pretty small language. Wait. That actually has more speakers than Icelandic. Give me a sec. Let's go with the language Latvian, which I'm learning. There are more speakers than Icelandic. Oh my goodness. I thought Icelandic was a really uncommon, or a more common language to learn than a lot of these. Okay, here. We have Pennsylvania German, Pennsylvania Dutch, whatever you call it. Pennsylvanisches Deutsch. There are 250,000 speakers. There's only 7 users on this website that speak Pennsylvania Dutch or German. There are 389 words that are pronounced and 49 words that are pending. So you have like 450 almost words already in your dictionary in a language that very few people speak in a very small location. But anyway, back to spaced repetition. Closemaster was a good app. Another good app is Mango that I had mentioned earlier. My marker might be out of ink. We'll go with blue. Mango that I mentioned earlier is great for learning languages. A really great one, in my opinion, is Tiny Cards by Duolingo. It's basically, you can take your Duolingo vocabulary or whatever vocabulary you want and put it into a deck of cards and play it like a game with, they still have the Duolingo's spaced repetition where the strength of your words goes down after a period of time. And then immersion is a very interesting one. With this method, the best way to immerse yourself, or there's two really good ways to immerse yourself, even when you're not in the country of the language that you're learning. One is to change your Facebook, your computer, your phone, your Discord, your Skype, whatever you have, change it all to your target language. So either you're going to have a really fun time trying to figure out what's going on, or you're going to end up not being able to do much, and you'll learn some words pretty quickly. Another way to immerse yourself is to take sticky notes and put them on the wall, the window, the closet, the door, with like a label of what this is. Like, for example, if I was learning German and I wanted to put on this window a sticky note, I would write Fenster on the sticky note and then put it on the window. So immersion is the last method. My biggest tip for learning languages, if you're trying to learn a lot of languages, try and mix it up. Like, if you're learning, make sure you don't just focus on one for any language, but if you're learning, say, French, you could go with speaking and reading as your methods for learning them. But if you're learning French and Russian, let's say, Russian, you wouldn't want to do the same thing because you might get the languages confused. It might not be the same for Russian and French because they're not that similar. But you get the point. If I was learning Russian, I would probably work on writing because they have a different alphabet than we do. But I'd also definitely do something like memorize and then maybe even immerse myself because that can be a difficult language. The whole point to this is to learn using more than one method at once. And so that's how I found that learning 10, 20, 30 languages at a time can be possible just by being like diligent, thrifty with your languages, having discipline, or I guess thrifty with your time, having discipline, and yeah. So I'm gonna stay here for maybe 3 or 4 minutes to answer questions. But if any of you guys have any questions about what languages I'm studying, how I'm studying them, what methods am I using for specific languages, I will be able to answer them in the chat, or any other type of questions you have, I will totally love to answer. So I'll leave it running for another minute 30. Since I've been gone in a different state for a lot of this conference, I'm gonna have to go back and watch a lot of the videos. Kevin Lewis, you said which method. I'm assuming you are one of the 2 or 3 people that just logged on. But I've talked about the 4 methods of learning languages and how to mix them up to learn 10 to 20 languages at a time. Logan Webster, I got a question from you in French. My French is terrible, so I'm not going to pronounce it, but let's see. I'm not really good with French. I'm assuming you're saying, or you're saying what method am I using to learn French? I think, I hope. The method I'm using to learn French is I use Duolingo, but I'm doing it through a thing called language laddering. I'm doing all my French through a thing called language laddering. And I'm going to Quebec soon, so I have to hurry it up. But I'm learning French through German. I think it's going to improve both my German and my French a lot more. I also am using, like, writing it out, and I use Duolingo and Memrise and Forvo for pronunciation, and an app called Lingomania, which is almost completely done programming. I don't know when Tristan's releasing the update, but it's going to be pretty great. I have been studying French for not too long, maybe less than a year, but I have, I want to say like 8 months. It's about the amount of time I've spent studying French among my 23 other languages. I'm going to let the chat run for 45 more seconds if anybody doesn't have any more questions. I have studied Russian. It's probably one of the languages I've given the exception and only dabbling. I don't really like dabbling in languages, but Russian I haven't really gotten seriously into much. Thanks for the nice words, Logan. I'm assuming you're asking which is the best way to learn Russian. I would say, I actually just gave that as an example. Reading and writing are going to be really important for Russian because it has a completely different alphabet than English. I'm assuming you are not 100% familiar with the Cyrillic alphabet. As well as immersion, you can immerse yourself through changing your Facebook, phone, computer, email, everything to Russian so that you are constantly looking at Russian and basically breathing and living Russian. So those are the best ways I would say are good for Russian. If anybody has any more questions, I guess I'll just stay on for like 45 seconds after the last question until there's no more questions. Anyway, this presentation is officially done. See you guys later.